In this video, I'm going to show you how to force yourself to get out of bed. Now, if you clicked on this video, you're probably like me and you have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. And I'm really committed to stay in a bed. And a lot of the advice I see isn't really helpful and basically amounts to annoy yourself to get out of bed. I see advice to drink water right before going to bed, but that just means I have to get up in the night to go pee. So in this video, I'm going to give you my best tips to force yourself to get out of bed. So my first tip is to use an alarm without snooze. Now this one is kind of counterintuitive. So the idea behind it is you are only going to set one alarm and you are not going to give yourself the option to use snooze. So for example, my phone, I can set an alarm and it will not let me hit snooze. Now I know a lot of the advice that I see says, oh, snooze isn't great because it's low quality sleep. But if I'm tired in the morning and I have the option to hit snooze, I'm gonna hit snooze. You're not going to have a backup alarm. Now, the way that this works well for me is because I know that this is the one alarm that I have. I don't have the option of going back to bed because if I fall back asleep, I'm going to be late to work. And in the back of my mind, I am so anxious that I kind of have no choice but to get out of bed. So to be fair, I think this tip does depend a little bit on what kind of sleeper you are. If you're the kind of person who isn't even conscious that they are turning off their alarm or hitting snooze, I don't think this would be a good tip for you if you're not awake enough that you realize that you're hitting the button. My next tip is to use a coffee machine with a timer. Now I realize having an automatic coffee machine is a pretty easy way to make coffee, but on a morning where I am really tired, just doing the little bit of extra effort the night before to have a cup of coffee ready right before my alarm goes off makes it that much easier for me to be able to get out of bed. Tip number 3 is to turn on the lights. So on mornings where I'm really struggling out of bed, even the act of reaching over to turn on a light on my bedside table is sometimes more than I feel like I'm capable of doing. And in these circumstances, having smart bulbs has infinitely made things easier for me. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll either use my phone or a digital assistant to turn on the lights. And even if my eyes are still closed, just having a bright light shining on my face makes it a lot easier for me to get up and to start my day. Of course, smart bulbs aren't in everybody's budget. The free option would be to open the curtains if it's close enough to your bed, or something else that you can try is I've noticed that smart switches are a lot more affordable, and then that way you still have the option of using your phone to be able to control the lights, although at least in my experience, the reliability of it working 100% of the time is not as much as what I found with using my smart bulbs. So now that it's getting cold out, even if I'm perfectly well rested, I sometimes have trouble getting out of bed just because it's so cold, and the allure of staying under my covers in the warm bed is too much to pass up. So I've got a couple different tips to help you if you're struggling with that too. The first one is to use a programmable thermostat. So what I do is that I have my thermostat set to be up to daytime temperature by the time that my alarm goes off. So it is so much easier to get out of bed when the house is 73 degrees versus 63 degrees. Now, of course, doing a programmable thermostat isn't an option for everybody. Not all of us are able to install our own thermostats, or God forbid, the time that I lived in an apartment where we had baseboard heat and I couldn't even control any specific temperature was really difficult. And what I would do if you're in that kind of situation is I would have warm items as close to the bed as you possibly can, ideally so that you don't even need to get out from under the covers to put on warm items. So I'd put a pair of slippers right next to your bed, and then I would hang a large oversized hoodie on your headboard so that you can put it on when you're under the covers. Something else that you can try, because I'm a big proponent of everybody in the bed gets their own blanket, is I have even taken my blanket off the bed and gone in the kitchen to get my cup of coffee. That way, once I start moving around and getting my blood pumping, I'm warming up, and then I'll take the blanket back to my bed. Now, of course, none of these tips are going to work as well if you're not going to bed at a reasonable time. And I know everybody hates putting themselves to bed like they're a child, but I would kind of caution you to think how you're approaching sleep and your bedtime, because if you're not getting yourself enough opportunity to sleep, that might be part of the reason why you're struggling so much in the first place. And I guess the flip side to that would be if you've implemented all of these tips and you still find that you are really struggling on getting out of bed, I'm gonna look up in the cards above my video on why you're always tired. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so I know you enjoyed it. And if you also want to be a well-rested human, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you get notified every time I upload. Sweet dreams!